We are continuing with our discussions today on Relationship Tuesday. Hapo nimechanganyikiwa tu kidogo katang twister, but joining me on this show now we have Emmanuel Gashanja. Karibu sana to the show, Emmanuel.
Asante sana.
We want to find out, guys, do you know whether you are in love or are you in lust? That's what we want to talk about this morning with Emmanuel. So maybe first off, you can tell us your definition of it and just sort of distinguish the two for us, because we often tend to conflate the two.
Awesome. Well, I'll start with lust because that's, I think, the most common one. Lust is when you desire to fulfill a fleshly desire, you know, something that's very physical. It has nothing to do with the emotions, the person, or or the inside and the personality of the person. Whereas love is continuous, selfless acts, thinking of the other one's desires as opposed to yours. Yeah.
Wow. So is it possible for lust to build a relationship? Because that attraction is important. Is it possible to build a relationship out of lust?
Truth is, it can start a relationship. Can it build a relationship? I'm not sure. Can it sustain a relationship? I don't think so. You need more than lust, because lust is very superficial. It's very outward, focused, and that fades. And if that's your focus, then what happens when the next beautiful person, the next, ripped guy passes by? Then, it all falls apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From a biblical perspective, why is lust wrong? What are some of the pitfalls that it leads us into? Because maybe people find themselves in it, and I mean, we're saying it can start a relationship,
Yeah.
but there's definitely certain pitfalls that lust brings our way as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because lust is talked so much about in the New Testament, how, we need to flee away from it. We need to restrain from it. We need to just stop it. In fact, I was listening to this gentleman who was talking about lust at one point, and he was talking about when we engage in fornication, when we engage in adultery. Fornication is sex before marriage. Adultery is sex with, with someone who's not your partner. Yeah, outside of your marriage. This was actually used in the olden days to worship gods, as in they would go into the temples to have sex with each other as a form of worship to God. So lust is also considered as idolatry, which, goes against God. I mean, you're worshiping someone else other than God. So God just looks really down upon lust.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, in terms of the signs that one is in lust and not in love, are there certain things you can point us to that actually would reveal, by the way, this isn't love, this is something else?
Well, number one, number two, number three, number four is one, if it becomes all about the physical. When you're in lust, it's about fulfilling, again, the desires of the flesh. How can I be pleased? How can I fulfill these feelings that I have towards this person? And in most cases, it becomes, something that people engage in physical way too early.
Yeah.
Way too early. Like nowadays, it's not uncommon for someone to go to bed with the other person on the first date.
Yeah.
In fact, it's considered, if you didn't do it, you're kind of slow. It's not uncommon that even if you're not on a date, you can just sleep with somebody.
Yeah.
If you met at some random spot.
Yeah.
So it's quite huge. Everyone has been very, very physical. We've become so physical, and everything around us has caused us to be or wired in that manner.
Yeah, and it's a sad reality too.
It
I
is,
mean,
it is.
considering our bodies are a gift, they're a temple of God, and so you know what, guys, value yourselves. You're not just like a commodity to be dished around. So in terms of one of the questions that women tend to ask a lot is, okay, man, just you're a man. You can just be honest with us. Why is it that it seems like for men, one woman, for many men, let's say, one woman just doesn't seem to be enough? And unfortunately, we see it across, our politicians, our who. what is it that one woman just doesn't seem to cut it? I'm joking. I'm joking.
The truth is, one woman is way more than enough. I can tell you that. I do not want to complicate my life anymore.
Yeah, I'm about to say, you
I
gotta
know.
tread very carefully.
I know. It's. I don't want to complicate my life anymore with adding a second woman. I'm still trying to figure out. We've been together for 17 years. You know, I'm still trying to figure her out. Again, I guess because of what society has portrayed out there, could be cultures, could be customs. You know, it's that whole thing men, you know, get into that, you know, you have to have the notches on your belt, who you slept with. And it's unfortunate because in society we celebrate that.
Yeah.
That, you know, you've been with so-and-so, you've been with so-and-so, you know, and it almost becomes like a competition.
Yeah.
Who you slept with, who you've been with. So it's not necessarily about the woman. It's not necessarily about her. It's not necessarily about, you know, even the companionship. It's really about, you know, just getting that notch on your belt.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey guys, if you are like totally feeling this conversation and it's speaking to you, again, the SMS line is 22999. You can also reach us on our social media platforms. That's at Switch TV KE on Instagram and at Switch TV Kenya on Facebook and Twitter. Emmanuel, as we continue with this discussion, you know what, let's be fair, because there's also women who are doing very weird things. With women, it seems like now there's a man for, shall we say, every bill. Kuna ule mwenye analipia rent, kuna ule mwenye shopping, kuna ule mwenye your travel plans. Yeah. So even us, even women, it seems like we've also, you know, lined them up and evolved into, I don't know what. You know, what would you challenge the women with today?
Well, you know, first of all, I don't really blame them for the way they are or the way we are wired now, just because of what society has put on us. I remember a few years ago, there was this show, Sex in the City. And Sex in the City was about these women, and they would just share about their relationships and how, you know, getting a man was not about, you know, the companionship and leading to marriage. It was literally just for fun, and, you know, and there was a liberalization that started with that.
Yeah.
So women were like, you know what, maybe I don't need, you know, to hang around and just wait for a man. I can get whatever it is that I want. And the truth is, one person cannot fulfill all your desires. The truth is, having one man will probably get you one or two things, yet you desire all these other things. So you find a lot of people, you know, saying, hey, this guy will sort the rent, this guy will sort my car issues because he's good with cars, this guy will be the one who buys my phones, this guy will be the one who takes me on trips, this is the guy who will, you know, will get down with, because he can put it down, you know. And just, I guess that's what has happened.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate.
It is very unfortunate,
Wow, guys, value yourselves. Seriously, if there's anything that we could give you from this conversation, is I think that would be one of the things. Value yourselves, because your creator values you. So, you know, you're not a commodity, in other words. Emmanuel, as we're on that, you know, when we're talking about lust and just sleeping around and people just kind of being all over the place, what happens then is, as much as people want to deny it, every time you're with someone, you leave a piece of yourself with them, right? Can you talk to us about soul ties? Because it seems like a lot of people don't actually believe that anything happens. But, you know, one day guys wake up and they just feel so empty. As much as you thought you were living the life and having a ball, like one day you wake up and you're absolutely empty. Talk to us about that.
The Bible actually mentions this. And in the Bible it says when a man and a woman come together, they become one. Just picture this. It's just like having a red manila and a blue manila. You apply some glue and you put them together. The moment you try to rip them apart, what happens? Some of the red will be left and some of the blue will be left. So you're left with a piece of somebody because your souls came together. You became one. So then you will be forever tied to that person. And that's what we call a soul tie, which is a very unhealthy tie.
Yeah.
So you find that, pieces of that somebody are in you. And you wonder why sometimes you do things that you don't understand in terms of character-wise. But it's because that piece of somebody was left in you. It's very, very powerful.
And I'm sure you've counseled many people who have come to realize that I guess they've had soul ties. At the moment that they were involved in whatever they were, they didn't maybe recognize it. But just sort of as a blanket statement over, the counseling sessions that you've held, what have you seen really as far as long-term effects of just jumping into relationships, purely based on lust?
Well, what I've noticed is that some people begin to manifest characters that they do not understand.
They themselves don't
They
understand.
themselves do not understand that. How could I have done that? But when they research and we just go back and look at the history, then he'll say, or she'll say that, I remember so-and-so. We were very intimate. We dated for forever. And because we were together, I've realized that there are habits that he did, things that even in his family that he was prone to, that now are affecting me. In fact, I see it a lot in marriages. People who are with different sexual partners and things beginning to manifest in their marriage. I remember this gentleman who just shared this really powerful story, how there was this spiritual aspect because there was this girl that he loved. There was this girl that he was sexually intimate with. But they didn't get together because of one reason or the other. And he struggled being in a meaningful relationship.
Because of that
Because of that one.
And it was just an encounter. It wasn't even a relationship.
Well, they were in a relationship for a couple of years. And, they were physically intimate.
Yeah.
So that affected every consequent relationship after that.
Right.
So for him, until somebody brought it out that you might have a soul tie, and they prayed together, to, I guess, renounce the soul tie. From that point, when he did that, he now began having meaningful relationship. He's been married over 10 years now, but it was because of that.
Wow. So, a lot of people then are actually setting themselves up to fail,
Oh, yeah.
in their marriages.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
not even giving yourself a fair chance
Oh, yeah.
in your relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And then we find, because we've been talking about how, divorce statistics, even in church,
Yes.
are so high nowadays.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because relationships are just breaking down.
Oh, yeah. And in fact, even in the church, it says it's almost 40%.
Yeah.
It's gone up to almost 40%. And this is within Christians.
Right.
We are the ones who are supposed to know better. We are the ones who are supposed to live on the foundation of the word.
Yeah.
Yet this is happening in our midst.
Wow.
Yeah.
As we talk about that, then I think it's important for us then to sort of look at what we can be doing. So how would you challenge us this morning as far as how to date better and ultimately marry better, right? Because it begins with that, initial dating and courtship and all that. How can we actually begin being very mindful of the sort of relationships that we end up in and how we carry ourselves in those relationships? How, as much as you're so smitten and everything,
Yeah.
you also need to be aware, of who the person you're with is.
Yeah. I think it begins with the foundation. I always like to say that. It begins with the foundation. Understanding the reason and the purpose for marriage. The reason and the purpose for marriage was for you, the both of you, to accomplish God's purpose in your lives. It doesn't even say companionship, although it's about companionship, but it's about fulfilling the purpose that God has for you on this earth. So finding that helper who will help you achieve that. And once you have that foundation, then it means that you're looking at the right things. Because if you have a target, things that you're going to achieve, then you want the right person next to you, supporting you, helping you, believing in the vision, and, just doing what it takes to achieve that purpose. Most people, unfortunately, we make it about the physical. She was cute, he was cute, so we were there and we went there, and when it becomes physical, then you're not asking the right questions. For example, we do a lot of premarital counseling in our church, and I'm actually leading a class right now. And it's interesting, as the couples get into this space, they're saying that we never had this conversation. This conversation was, let's pick a topic like money. We never talked about budgets. We never talked about how do you spend, what do you spend, what do you like spending on. These are fundamental, very foundational stuff.
We heard from our previous guest that it's actually the top 3 cause of issues in marriage.
We don't even talk about sex. How often does the guy want it? How often does the girl? What is a no-go zone? What is a go zone? We don't talk about in-laws, outlaws, what we're supposed to do. We don't have...
in-laws leo wamekipata.
I know. It's, these are reasons why, people are divorcing now.
It's true.
So, and we're not having those conversations because we're so interested in impressing and just showing her that I am Mr. Romantic. I'll bring the flowers, the cards, the chocolates. I'll take you to the fanciest places. I'll tell you all these sweet things about your hair, your eyebrows.
Kumbe jamaa amekesha tu hapo na internet.
Yeah. He really has.
And then after that, like, there's no more relationship.
There's no more relationship. And once he tells you that, all you go, and that's all he's waiting for. Once you, and then he knows. And the truth is, once you make it physical, you actually stop having conversations. Because at every movie, you're cuddling and you're ready to, and because for the woman, she doesn't want to lose a guy, because now, unfortunately, society, there's so many broken family situations. So you find women are longing for a relationship, a companionship. So they get into it and stay and try to keep him because of that. So by the time you're getting married, you've not had essential conversations that you should have had. And guess what? You're going into empty. In year 2, you're like, hiya, you do that. You have changed. You're not the person I knew. And it becomes like a eureka moment. Yet, if you really think back, there's so many things when I think back, I was like, I didn't see that in my wife. I didn't see that in my wife because I was busy trying to impress her.
Wow. That's a very powerful statement you've made. Just about how we spend too much time trying to impress. And then by year 2, 3, there's nothing left for you to talk about. And I really like how you said, because you're so focused on the physical in your relationship, you actually stop having conversations.
That's true.
So you don't even have a companion anymore. Wow, very deep. Thank you so much, Emmanuel, for being here today.
You're welcome.
Very powerful conversations we've had on this show today. Just keeping it real on relationships. And I think, above all, it's really a question of how you value yourself. So, be probing yourself about that and ask yourself that question. For now, here is Ada with the song On My Matter, taking us to the end of the show.